Welcome to Lanterns Live. I'm Ralph, and today we are discussing the current Green Lantern ongoing series from DC Comics, with written by Jeremy Adams and art by Xermánico. I think that's how you pronounce it. Let's get Vactor in here. My guest today is Vactor from the Vactorverse. Am I pronouncing it right? Do you think I'm pronouncing?
I've never heard it pronounced before. Yeah, Xermánico. Xermánico.
Feel free
I've
to
never.
post comments if you
Yeah.
can somehow convey how to pronounce it on the thing. But yeah, we're talking about that series, Vactor. I'm trying to do this with every single guest that comes on for their first time onto Lanterns Live. Let me know what your secret origins is with the character Green Lantern.
Oh man, I think my earliest memory goes back to it had to be a superpowers action figure of Hal Jordan, and came with the little comic book, and I was just that. It's a core memory for me of my identity with Green Lantern comes from that. And so that's why Hal has always been my Green Lantern. And over the years, he's just been one of those characters that was like always around in my mind. And then kind of the same way with Barry Allen for Flash, he was the one that I remember my dad talking to me about. My dad kind of passed down his love of comic books and superheroes to me. And those figures had a huge impact on my just identity. And then when I started reading, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember these characters and I remember playing with these action figures. So Hal Jordan has kind of been my North Star for Green Lantern. I've always come back to Hal as like, that's my Green Lantern.
Yeah, for me, I started with like Super Friends, and then in the '90s, there was the Green Lantern Volume 3, I believe. That's where I kind of started. Um, where did you jump in as far as comics? When did you start reading like Green Lantern?
Oh, man. The Jeff Johns run is when I first started seriously reading, because
Mhm.
before it was just like random issues, random trades, or he would be in other people's books or Crisis or
Right.
things like that, crossovers. But it was the Jeff Johns run that was like, oh, this is a great story, and it's all I'm able to collect it as the single issues came out as I was reading it. And then Secret Origin was like the book that I would give people when they would ask me, "Hey, where can I jump in on Green Lantern?" And Secret Origin was always the one that I was like, "Here, this is the one that you want to read." So I would say that Jeff Johns, like the whole color spectrum war, the Sinestro Corps war, all of those things, Blackest Night, all those things were great. Yes. Oh man, I
Yeah.
love that art too. And I haven't felt that same feeling again since that Jeff Johns run, but I think this Jeremy Adams run is kind of giving me some of those vibes. So I'm really happy.
Spot on. It's exactly my same thoughts. So I read Green Lantern in the '90s, dropped off a little bit, came back to it with Rebirth and Jeff Johns.
Hmm.
Um, I am currently in the middle of going through that entire '90s run. I'm on
Ooh,
issue 134 of Green Lantern Volume 3. I'm pretty sure it's Volume 3.
sounds right.
We're in the like Ron Mars
Okay.
and Banks.
Yes.
Um, Daryl Banks. So I'm like right in the like getting inching my way closer and closer to that Jeff Johns Rebirth. And one of the things that I like Jeff Johns did, which he didn't have to do, which is relevant to Jeremy Adams, is when he brought back Hal Jordan after his like cataclysmic like fall from grace in the Emerald Twilight and stuff, or Emerald Dawn. Uh, what he did in Rebirth was he could have killed off Kyle. He could have killed off any other lanterns and replaced them with Hal, but he didn't. And I love the fact that he left all the characters intact. And over since Jeff Johns' run, um, Venditti was good. Uh, I keep forgetting the names. But Grant Morrison and Tony Bedard, Grant Morrison and God dang it, what's his name? I purposely remembered it. Thorne, Jeremy Thorne. No, it's Jeremy Adams. It's just
I'm trying to scramble to find it too.
it's I can't think of his name.
Liam Sharp? Did you say that already?
Liam Sharp was the artist for the Grant Morrison run. It's not Jason Thorne, it's Jeremy Thorne. Jason Thorne. Don't remember. Somebody. It's too late. It's too late. I've already stumbled. I've already showed that I'm not like the most steel trap of Green Lantern knowledge. But his last name's Thorne. It's not Jeremy Thorne. It doesn't matter. Regardless, since Jeff Johns' run, they weren't what I was looking for. Jeff Johns created sort of this heyday of Green Lantern, and he did it so well that it became one of the most popular books in comics, and it paved the way for the film, which we all assumed Green Lantern Secret Origins was going to be, the film was going to be based on that, which it wasn't. But like none of the books since Jeff Johns really captured me as much as that run until now. And this show is pretty much was born out of my love of this Jeremy Adams book. Now, I don't know how much you know about Jeremy Adams. I know a little bit. The biggest fact I know about Jeremy Adams, the one that hits me right here in the feels, is the fact that he wrote 2 episodes of Green Lantern, the animated series. One of them being Blue Hope, which is a terrific episode, and the other one was Scarred, another terrific episode. I mean, they're all great episodes. Green Lantern the animated series is the one that I feel really does Green Lantern justice in media outside of the comic books. We're going to be talking about some standalone animated features in the near future, but I feel like of everything that's been done, including the film, that Green Lantern the animated series is the one that I absolutely love. I'm in the middle of like maybe my 7th or 8th rewatch right now.
Nice.
I'm on the Larfleeze episode. So Jeremy Adams comes in and gets the gig. And what I like about this book is he does what Jeff Johns did, which is not only is he not killing off characters, but he's bringing in Joe from Far Sector in, and Callie from the Justice League books. I haven't really read those. But what's funny is in the Green Lantern community, like people are like, why are there so many lanterns from Earth? There's so many Earth lanterns. Why are there so many lanterns from Earth? And it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, just, there's different flavors, different people, a Green Lantern could be anybody. You don't have to be, a millionaire whose parents got killed. You don't have to be a son of Krypton. You don't have to accidentally get splashed with chemicals while at the same time getting hit by a bolt of lightning. A Green Lantern is chosen, and Jeremy Adams has kind of given a reason why there are so many lanterns from Earth, and I kind of dig it.
It is funny when during the Jeff Johns run, I just remember thinking, okay, there's 4 Earth lanterns, and that's a lot. And then now flash forward to this one, and it's like there's 7, and I have a blank spot, and I'm like, all right, where did all these new lanterns come from? Like I read Far Sector, and I have a little bit of
Far Sector.
Yeah, that is a great book, great art. And the like I've seen animated series with Jessica and Baz, and I'm like, I have a little bit of a knowledge of them, but not a huge one. So I'm like, man, I already was the Earth lanterns were already stacked. Now there's more for me to learn about. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just fun to think about. This Earth is such a hot spot in the universe for the lanterns to protect.
Yeah, I think
It's
was
just
it
fun.
Blackest Night where they discovered like Earth was where the either the Black Lantern or the White Lantern was secretly being held
That sounds
from
right.
the
Yeah,
Guardians.
that sounds right.
I think that was Brightest. I think that led into
Brightest
Brightest Day.
day. Yeah.
Anyway, we
Which
start off with this series with Hal Jordan with this ring that won't let him leave Earth. It's a ring that's not working on the same wavelength as the regular Green Lantern power battery. Um, there's this new like coalition of planets. That's not the name of it. Coalition of planets is an invincible thing. But there's this new there's this new force. The Guardians
the
have been
UP.
gone. Yeah, there's this new like universal sort of um uh like
It's like the
essentially
planetary.
it's like
Yeah.
SCOTUS, essentially. It's essentially what it is. And it's filled with bad guys secretly. Um, but there's this sort of fail safe that the Guardians created where there's a power battery on Earth. And the reason why there's so many lanterns from Earth is because they can be part of this sort of inner circle of protectors, which for me, like anybody who was mad that there's so many Earth lanterns, I'm like, at least Jeremy Adams is going in the way Jeff Johns did. And so said, okay, here's a thing that's going on. Hal Jordan became bad. We know he became Parallax, and we've always known that there was some sort of impurity in the power battery that uh, caused a disruption for Green Lanterns when it came to the color yellow. So Jeff Johns was like, okay, well, Parallax was what is the yellow impurity? It's an entity. They trapped the entity of fear in the battery to sort of subdue it and keep it at bay, but that affects the Green Lantern rings. Well, then that affected or Hal Jordan's ring greatly, and he didn't just become a bad guy. He was infected by this thing. I love the
Yes.
retcon. It fit. It didn't take away anything from its predecessors, and it helped open up the world to these other entities and the other color power batteries. He made it so the Star Sapphires were violet, and it made it all sort of work.
Yes.
He's like, let me try to map this out so that it's airtight, and it worked great because it was a reboot that didn't uh, dishonor the past. It didn't
Yes.
sort of push fans of the series away. It didn't say, "Oh, everything you thought was wrong." He didn't get rid of canon. It didn't turn into legends. He's like he twisted it so that it's like everybody's included, including your Hal's, your Kyle's, your John's guy. So Jeremy Adams is like, there's too many Earth Lanterns, but let's make it a reason why there is. And I think the reason he came up with is pretty good.
Yeah.
I definitely like this idea of this sort of fail-safe lantern on Earth. And of course, Hal's the one to sort of like discover it. And essentially get back at this. I'm going to keep calling them Coalition of Planets. I know that's not their name. I could look it up right now, but it's
I was
always for me going to be Coalition of Planets because I am a fan of Invincible.
yeah.
Do you remember their name?
I was trying to look it up too, and
It's
I was
just
like, it's they shortened it to like the UP or something like the
yeah, it's the United
what is
Planets.
okay,
It's the
United. Okay,
United Planets.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great, like you said, it's just a great um take on it. And that's what I've been waiting
Mm.
for. I thought that's what the Grant Morrison run was gonna be. And I love Grant Morrison, but that run, it was too far out to me. Like I had a hard time getting my bearings, like, what is this? What can I grasp onto?
It's so
And
psychedelic.
yeah,
It's like a psychedelic book, and
so
it didn't
this is
have that. It was mostly about Hal Jordan, the person, and trying to
mm,
get into his head and what he goes through and his thoughts and him wrestling with what it is to be Green Lantern versus, being able to be happy with like Carol. You know, it was a struggle of the mind, and for me, I would rather see a struggle with enemies fighting and punching. I don't need to see Hal being in this existential crisis. I'd rather see him in a global crisis.
Yes, yes,
That's
man.
what's fun.
Yeah. And there's something I think with the New 52 is when it really started to like unravel for me as far as like I was so into what was going on, like we said, with Sinestro Corps War and then everything with Blackest Night and even Brightest Day is when the New 52 stuff started to come in, and I
Yeah.
just kind of fell off there. And
Mhm.
the dawn of DC, I think, has been not only with Green Lantern, but it's been really successful across the board for me of making me interested in the DC characters. The Superman books have been great. The Flash books have been great. All the Bat family books have been great. So this Dawn of DC initiative that they've done, it's coming to a close here, has really kind of reignited my DC love. And I don't even like I'm so focused on what DC is doing. I'm not even reading a lot of the Marvel books right now. I'm I have a little bit of Spider-Man stuff that I'm reading, but I would say 90% of my stuff is DC because of Dawn of DC. And I'm really glad that you invited me on here because I've been wanting to get caught up on this Green Lantern book. And this is everything that people have been talking about. It's been a fantastic run so far. And Jeremy Adams also did the Jay Garrick book, which
Oh
I've
yeah.
been loving that one as well. So yeah, it's just this is what I want, like a creator that has something to say, has a different take on something. And that's what when I was reading it, I was like, this is something that hasn't been done before in Green Lantern. It's something that is a new, like a fresh start to this, even though these characters are, 60, 70 years old, whatever it is, and trying to reinvent them every couple of years, every decade is very difficult. Like you said, respecting the canon and the stuff that's come before, but then
Mhm.
also adding your own spin on it and whatever the modern take on it is. So, so far, like I said, this has been a great run for Jeremy Adams, and I'm really interested to see where this goes after Dawn of DC. What the next
Right.
kind of step is. But yeah, I'm having a great time so far.
So as a reader, we only get 2 issues of this Green Lantern run before we get into a big sort of DC crossover called Night Terrors. And for me, I was like, we just started. I'm
Yeah.
really getting into this book. I'm like, we're 2 in. I love it, and already it has to get sidetracked. So the Night Terror books, I think Jeremy Adams does a terrific job with it because what it basically is, it's a story that I don't need. It's a story of how Jordan, again, struggling with his inner demons, the death of his father, his life as a Green Lantern, and all this stuff. It's not anything that's new to me. It's not terribly interesting to me. But what's great and what Jeremy Adams does here is for anybody who's picking up Donna DC and isn't familiar with the Green Lantern character, it's giving a backstory in this sort of crossover event that doesn't feel shoehorned in. It feels like a continuation of the story. Because when I read it, I, I I read it and I was like, okay, yeah, none of this is new to me, but not thinking there's brand new readers to this book.
Mhm.
They don't know
Mhm.
what I know, and
Yeah.
this is perfect for them. It's a slight sidetrack for this sort of crossover event, but not to the point where it's like a waste of my $5 or whatever.
Right.
It's like, oh,
Right.
this is okay. This is serving a purpose and is helping me get to understand what Jeremy Adams' version of Hal is and what his demons are,
Right.
as opposed to Grant Morrison, who had a whole different idea of who Hal Jordan was, and the stuff he was fighting. So that Night Terrors didn't bother me in the slightest. We got some great stuff. There's one thing that happened in the book that uh, kind of bummed me out, and that's the death of a major character. If you haven't read it, uh, Kilowog is dead. Uh, Super bummed me out, like hardcore bummed me out. Kilowog is my logo for a reason. He's one of my favorite lanterns. He's the coolest toy on the superpowers line. According to me, I think he's the coolest toy. And it bummed me out. And I'll get your thoughts on that. But what took the sting out of it a little bit was the character Razor gets introduced in the Green Lantern comics. I don't think for the first time. He might have. Well, the Green Lantern the animated series character was in the Green Lantern the animated series comic book, which there's some issues I could recommend, some that I don't recommend. But as soon as I saw Razor show up in sort of comic book canon, and his relationship to Hal and Kilowog was like a continuation from the series, that's when I got super amped for this. I got super amped because he showed up. They ended up doing a sequel to Green Lantern the animated series. They did 2 episodes, I believe, of Young Justice that had the Razor's continuing story of him as sort of, I don't know, spoilers, but he's able to wield his red lantern ring at the same time as his blue lantern ring. And he's like split down the middle. It's kind of awesome. So we haven't seen that in this book yet, but just the fact that Jeremy Adams is like from the creative team behind Green Lantern animated series and bringing Razor into the comics, I mean, it definitely took the sting away from Kilowog. We've seen Kilowog die before, so I'm sure we can see him come back. What are your thoughts on Kilowog and Razor?
Yeah, that for me was kind of a new jumping in point, and this is kind of a little experiment that I like to run every now and then of, can this be someone's first comic? Like Stan Lee had a saying, like every comic is somebody's first comic.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested to see how the storytellers are able to say, okay, can you catch somebody up, and can they just go with the flow, just start right in? Because a lot of times we get, especially us, comic book readers, we get so bogged down by continuity and, oh man, I got to read 150 issues of this. And now that I have a 3-year-old son, I have less time to read. So I've been kind of skipping around on certain stuff. So this is actually my introduction to Razor. But Kilowog has always been one of my favorite lanterns. Him calling people Poozer is always one of my favorite things. That his personality is always one that is as like the hardcore lantern trainer is always one of those things that's fun for me. So I'm like you, like when I see Kilowog, when I just see his face, it's one of those staples of, hey, this is Green Lantern to me, along with Hal is and even to a certain extent Sinestro, like that is what Green Lantern is to me. So learning about Kilowog's death in this was like, oh man, that bummed me out. But then also in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is comics. He'll be back. Like this is, nobody stays dead forever. Hal was dead at some point. Like everybody's come back. Everybody gets resurrected. But I think this is like Tim is saying right here, I think this is a great jumping on point. That's why renumbering it and calling it, this new volume, getting people into like, oh, this is a fresh take on Green Lantern. This is a good jumping on point. That concept of the red and blue split down the middle is very interesting to me. And even in this run, we get the lanterns that are able to kind of switch colors on the fly. And I'm like, this is like a fun concept to me. This is interesting. So I like this stuff of, it's not the same, I don't feel like it's tired or retreading ground anywhere. It's just, it feels fresh. And that's what I've been wanting. And that's, like I said, that's what I wanted out of the Grant Morrison run. But this is what is more traditional to me.
So have you seen Green Lantern the animated series?
I started it, but also like Young Justice, it's like at some point I fell off and I was like, I'll get back to it. 5 years passed, whatever it is. And I'm like, dang, I still have not gotten back to it. So I started it, but I didn't finish it.
Well, I don't know if your son's old enough to watch it yet. I mean, there is violence. I know the show opens with the death of a Green Lantern and the ring going to find a new user.
I do remember that.
I would say as soon as they're old enough to watch like the Clone Wars or Star Wars
Oh, okay.
animated,
Yes.
that you
Yes.
could probably introduce Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I highly recommend it because like the first couple episodes, I get it. It's there's a lot of setup, but there's two main story arcs. What's great is there's only 26 episodes. That's not great. I wish there were more. But there are only 26 episodes, two 13 episode story arcs. Both great story arcs. One's with the Red Lanterns, the other's with the
Ooh.
Anti Monitor.
Okay.
And you end up getting like Guy Gardner showing up. You get Kilowog, Salak. You even get some Chip. You get some
Oh
Chase.
yeah.
You get Chaselon. You get
Oh
Larvox.
man.
So I highly recommend it. I think it would be easier for you to watch it with the kid. It would be a great introduction uh, for kids into the Green
Perfect.
Lantern mythos, unless you're reading them to him at bedtime.
Mm.
But there also are the Green Lantern the animated series comic books too, which might be a good entry point as well for early readers. But Razor was introduced into that show as a Red Lantern. He has a great arc. He was created for the series along with the character Aya, and both of them, it was two characters created just for the series because the creators were like, we don't want you to know what happens to these characters. We're not going to be able to kill off Hal. We're not going to be able to kill off Kilowog. Like, but you don't know what these other two characters are about.
Mm.
I can't recommend it enough. I think once you get like maybe 3 or 4 episodes in, it starts getting real serialized, and so you're
Ooh. Okay.
really getting invested in the story. It's yeah. Tim says he hasn't seen GL the animated series. It's on Max. Um, it's hands down the best Green Lantern content outside of the comics.
Mm,
And again,
nice.
it is
Okay.
better than some of the comics. There's definitely some stuff in there. Jeffrey Thorne was his name. Didn't care for that series. It's the one that came out before this current run. Um,
Oh wow.
um, you got Star Sapphires. You got.
Yeah.
I'm currently on an episode that features Larfleeze. Like you're getting everything. WB even let Sinestro show up because they were like, don't do
Nice.
Sinestro. We're going to save him for the second movie, which never happened. But
Oh man.
Ron Perlman plays
Ooh.
Sinestro.
Oh
It
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like I'm telling you, man, like as soon as your kid's old enough for that kind of content, that kind of cartoons, um, sit down and start watching. I guarantee you're going to enjoy it. You're going to get it gets to the point where you just got to watch the next one. You got to see
Okay.
what happens next. They have a whole episode where Hal Jordan goes to an alternate dimension where it's an entire planet is steampunk,
Oh.
and there's a steam lantern who runs off a
Oh.
steam powered battery,
Oh man.
and he flies around in the blimp, and he fights giant clanking robots. It's a wild show.
Oh
I'm going to
man.
see if I can get one of the creators on here to talk about it,
Nice.
because it's you got to watch it. It's so good,
I'm
and
moving this up on my list.
you'll get to learn more about Razor, which is great.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So
I'm
anybody
definitely moving
anybody
this
who
up.
has Max, it's available. Every once in a while, you can get the whole series for like $5 on iTunes.
Oh,
Every once in a while, they'll just like put it up for cheap.
nice.
But highly recommend it. The animation, it feels a little primitive now because it was 2011 TV
Yeah.
show,
That's
but
like,
the storytelling's so good that you kind of forget all that stuff.
yeah. That was actually even in 2011. I'm just not a fan of like I always go back to that 90s cartoon reboot and
Yeah,
the 3D animation. It feels so like wooden to me. It doesn't
yeah,
feel fluid. So anytime I saw a show come out, I'm a huge hand drawn animated guy. So anytime I saw a 3D show, I was like, So that was another thing that was like causing me to not watch it. But
yeah.
a great story and great characters trumps everything. So I will definitely move it
the
up on my
the
list.
voice acting's top notch. Hal Jordan is
Josh Keaton.
Josh Keaton.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Spider-Man.
Uh,
Yes.
Kevin Michael Richardson is Kilowog, and
Yes, yes,
his voice as
yes.
Kilowog is almost
That's
identical to
perfect.
the Maulers
Yes.
in
Yes, yeah,
Invincible.
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Jeff,
love Kevin Michael Richardson. I love him.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Gray Griffin
Man.
is
Oh, yeah,
Aya,
she's great.
and
Yes.
Spacek is a Razor. And you
Let
have
me see something
you have
else.
the Spider Guild who are using dream machines on people as torture, and who plays the head of the Spider Guild who's running the dream machines? Robert England, Freddy Krueger himself, is the
Whoa,
voice of the
okay.
guy manipulating people's dreams. So
I swear
yeah,
I heard that somewhere, but yeah, that's
yeah.
great. That's
Jennifer
fantastic.
Hale is Carol.
Oh,
The
I
the
love
voice cast is
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, they got the WB, like the history of the DC animation is great with
Mhm.
Warner Brothers, so that doesn't surprise me about the casting. Like they've always had great cast, but yeah, this is definitely going up on my list.
Yeah,
And now that I have a little bit more of a familiarity with Razor, I think these two are gonna just the two stories are gonna just enhance each other for me.
yeah. Yeah, Razor and Aya created just for the show became fan favorites for sure,
Dang.
and it's great to see that Razor is now in comic book canon because it wasn't he was created for the show, so it's like
And
Batgirl, right? It wasn't Batgirl created for
oh,
the Adam West series,
yes, that's right. That's right.
yeah, and then
Yes.
she went into the comics, and that's
Yep.
like it's like this
Harley
crazy
Quinn.
like backwards, yeah, Harley
Yeah.
Quinn,
Yep.
same thing, yeah,
Shiny Plastic People was calling me out talking bad about Reboot. Hey, it was good for its time. The 90s, it was like Toy Story. It was like, okay, this is the first
yeah.
one. This is groundbreaking. But I just don't like when they move like this and their mouth are like this. I was like, I like fluidity. I like motion. That's why the hand-drawn stuff for me is the best.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my own personal thing.
Think of it
Even
as
the
a
Batman.
really nice. The Batman. Yeah, yeah. I thought you were talking
That
about the
animated one.
is that
Oh, no, no.
the animated one, the CG one?
Yes. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a
It
hard
that came
time with
around the
that one.
same time. Yeah, that
Yeah.
came around the same time. Um, just picture it as a really nice motion comic.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Um,
but but it's one of those things also. Whereas the stories get better, the animation gets better too. You could
that
tell
makes
in the
sense.
early
Yeah.
episodes
Yeah.
they didn't have a lot of assets to work with. They weren't using a lot. There
Mm,
wasn't a lot of characters and aliens to populate the world, so the world seemed kind of
yeah.
empty, like in
Okay.
Reboot. But I'm telling you, give it like three or four episodes, and you start getting into the characters and stuff. Um, it man, it's awesome. It's
Oh,
awesome.
Beware
You're
the
gonna get
Batman. Yes, I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah.
Beware
That's
the
what it
Batman.
was.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
but
was the
I'm
CG
moving this
one.
up, Ralph. You've convinced me. I'm moving it up, and although the short amount of episodes is not great for you, that's great for me because I can get caught
Yeah,
up a little bit faster. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm moving it ahead of Young Justice, which I love Young Justice, and I still haven't caught up
Mhm.
on that. But I'm moving Green Lantern
I
up.
haven't. I haven't caught up on Young Justice. I watched the episode where Razor returned.
Ooh.
And what's there was the was it Justice League versus the Fatal Five where Kevin
Oh
Michael
yeah, yeah,
Richardson
the animated
returned?
movie.
The
Yeah,
Kevin Michael
I
Richardson
did see
returned
that.
as Kilowog, I believe, and they put
That
or was
sounds
that
about right.
Young Justice? He showed up somewhere, but they put him in the outfit from Green Lantern the animated series.
Oh man, that's cool.
Dude,
Yeah.
I've watched this series at least 7 times through. I'm currently in another rewatch, uh, and I'm up to the Larfleeze episode.
Oh
And
man.
dude, like, it's you're gonna
I
love
love
it.
Larfleeze.
You're gonna
Yeah.
love it. You'll have to come back. You'll have to come back. It's Tim Costello's convinced. Listen, it's on Max. If you have Max, yes. And Chris mentions that JL versus the Fatal Five was very, very good. I'm trying to remember if that's where Kilowog returned as Kevin Michael Richardson
Yeah.
as
Je
Kilowog.
that
Um,
might be the first time I saw Jessica Cruz was in um, that movie. That was 2019. I'm trying to see if
yeah,
Kilowog is in here. Yeah,
yeah,
but man, yeah. I'm a sucker for DC animated stuff, and that was the one that kind of fell through the cracks for me, like I said, along with, Young Justice, but I'm usually up on all the DC animated stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, Kevin Michael Richardson played Mr. Terrific and Kilowog. For some reason, he was uncredited as Kilowog for whatever reason.
I don't know. So back to the book. I
Yeah.
don't really have too much more to say other than I absolutely love this book. I love where all the characters are at. Kyle Rayner is very, very sad. Kyle
Yeah.
Rayner is at a very, very low point. He's not doing well. That makes me sad. Uh, it's
Was that did I miss something? Was there another crossover that something happened to him? Because when he shows up, he's like kind of
in
almost
the
cowering in the
corner, in the
corner.
dark
Yeah.
corner, like shaking. Something's happened to him.
Yeah.
I don't know if they just put a little box in the corner that the editorial says that I need to read some other issue of like JLA or something. I don't know. But I'm sure he'll bounce back. Kyle is resilient. Kyle's my favorite. I hope nothing happens to him. Jeremy Adams, if you're listening, please do not hurt Kyle Rayner. But it is good to see that all the lanterns kind of have their part in this. Jessica,
Yes.
something's up with Jessica. Something's not right.
Yeah, she's like an undercover agent, and the backup stories were actually interesting too, and that goes into a lot of the other lanterns on what they're doing, and
Right.
Guy is off trying to capture
With
this
Lobo.
Lobo, and that's a House of Brainiac tie-in, which that series has been really good, or that
Okay.
storyline.
I
I should say.
haven't like okay, so some of the secondary the backstories are fine. I'm not really gravitating towards this Guy and Lobo one, even though Jeremy Adams also wrote this one, which I
Yes,
thought was
yeah.
interesting. I'm just
Mhm.
not the biggest Lobo fan, and so
Oh
it's like
man, that's one of my wife's favorite characters. She loves Lobo. I don't know why, but Lobo's one of her favorites. And the House of Brainiac storyline deals with his race of aliens, and there's a ton of good stuff that's happening. So it's a nice little crossover, kind of like with the now I'm blanking on it. What was the first crossover that happened in the first couple issues? The sleep one.
the
Um,
John Stewart one.
the one shoot, now I'm completely blanking on it. The one that it crossed over successfully, you were saying in the first couple issues. Night Terrors, sorry, Night Terrors. I had a
Night
brain
Terrors.
fart. This House of Brainiac, they did a nice job of kind of, hey, it's in the background. You can go read that if you want to, but it's not like essential to what's going on. So I like the way that they did that. But these backups have been kind of fun. Night Terrors, Tim, I knew it. I knew it.
Do you have any like kind of thoughts as far as where this book is going? Anything you want to see?
You know, I'm actually interested to see where Sinestro went. Like, I was really enjoying that dynamic of him and Hal, and then him going off like on his own. And I've been reading Super Sons, which I'm not not Super Sons, but the Sinestro and Sinister Sons. Sorry, Sinister Sons has been a great thing, and they said something about Sinestro going over into that book. But I'm curious to what's happening in that part. I'm curious to what's happening in kind of like this conspiracy with the UT or the UP, and how they like they're all shapeshifters. It's kind of like that felt like Secret
Yeah,
Invasion a little bit. Like the scrolls are infiltrating everybody, and then everybody they're all the same.
it's
So
fun though.
yeah,
It's really
all
fun.
of this stuff is fun. The art has been great, and again, it's just this overall feeling that I'm getting from this book is what I've been wanting since Jeff Johns. Ever since New 52, I just haven't felt that. And
Yeah,
you're always the lantern guy amongst my friend group of like, okay, certain friends I have, we have like a Superman chat. We have like, okay, here's my Flash and Batman guys. You've always been Green Lantern, and I there was even talk behind the scenes. I wanted to get you on to my show to talk about the Green Lantern, the Grant Morrison run, and that kind of fizzled out because it just I never really got excited about it. I never got like I really want to
I
talk
might
about
not
it.
have been excited about it.
This is like yes, this was perfect. It got me back on board, and I'm just gonna be I'm continuing to read Green Lantern now. It's like it's one of my weekly reads now. It's one of my daily or it's on my pull list. So I'm interested to see where this goes. The mystery, all of how the other lanterns play in, how the emotional spectrum is being affected with Kyle and his kind of like I don't know what's going on with that. So I'm
These ring
all of this
slingers that
stuff is
can use
fun.
any color,
Yeah,
like
like
all
yeah,
of that's
all
all
of
this
that
is
stuff.
really, really interesting stuff and new and fresh, but
Yep.
feels like something Jeff Johns would do.
Yes, and
Like
even
kind
the
of take
Hal and Carol stuff where
yeah,
she's got her guy on the side. We know they're gonna get back together at some point.
yeah,
Like it's we've seen this done with Superman a bunch of times with like there's that love triangle, and they're gonna get back together. But that stuff is even interesting to me about where Hal and Carol are. He's like that. He says at one point when he's going off the planet, he's like, "If you love something, set it free. Sorry, Carol, I should have been there for you. Like I hope you are happy now." All of that stuff is interesting to me. So none of the storylines that have been going on throughout the whole book have been like, oh, I wish they would. We can skip this part. I don't care. Every single storyline has been fun to
yeah,
me, so I'm really enjoying it.
yeah. I agree. This show or this book got me like, fired up for Green Lantern all over again.
Yes.
Rewatching the animated series has got me fired up on Green Lantern. The news that there's going to be a Green Lantern series
Oh
produced by one
man.
of my favorite showrunners in television, who did a bang up job with Watchmen. I think Watchmen was amazing. Of course, I'm a fan of
Yes.
Lost. So seeing that Damon is going to be part of the creative team behind the Lantern Show, I just got super excited and I looked it up. I'm like, maybe I can just do this. Maybe I can squeeze in another podcast. I
I
think I
was
can.
surprised when you announced
Yeah,
this. I was like, man, he's
really.
doing so much stuff right now. But
Well,
I got to
I
give you
haven't really.
Well, I
I
gotta give you a
was
shout
just
out real quick. Last
okay.
week's episode with Johnny was great. So anyone who's
Oh,
interested in
thanks.
the Lanterns show, check out the previous episode of Lanterns
It
Live.
it made me feel better about some of my doubts with the show. Like it really did. Um, but I was gonna say that, like, uh yeah, it's all this stuff has gotten me so excited. I haven't really said anything, but like, there, one of my other podcasts is now taking a back seat. Um, my cue the music is going to be sort of shelved for a while because I was so excited about Green Lantern. I was so excited that Lanterns Live was a domain and social thing that
Nice.
wasn't taken.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm taking it. Fine, I'm doing this. I'm too excited right now about Green Lantern. I got to do it. So it was a decision where I was like, this is this thing that makes me happy, but this is this thing that makes me like really excited. So I'd rather do the thing that makes me really excited. And it's been so fun chatting with a new guest every week. I'm sure we'll have everybody back. Thank you for showing up. This was basically this episode was sort of created so that we can tell everybody to read the new Lantern book, the new Green
Yeah.
Lantern book. It's
Yeah.
very good. And then from now on, once a month, I'll be doing a review on on the next current issue. You can join me. You don't have to join me. I can get anybody who's reading it. I could do it by myself. It doesn't matter. But I want this covering Jeremy Adams' book monthly. I
Perfect.
think I'm going to do a similar one with the John Stewart book that's out there now. And of course, the title escapes me. It's the boy. I don't even know
And
why I brought it up.
there was some backups with that in
War
the
Journal.
early part. Yes. Yeah.
War
There was
Journal.
some backups there where he was like with his mom, and you don't know why he's on the like he's taking a hiatus, but he's still looking off to the stars. So yeah, that's interesting too.
Yeah, and then Chris, you can come on any episode, 100%. But it's one of those things where it's just like I was like, okay, I haven't started reading War Journal. I have the first one downloaded. Once I catch up on that, maybe I'll do another one of those episodes, and then you'll get a War Journal episode a month, Green Lantern episode a month, the Jeremy Adams one, and then news
Nice.
because we should be getting casting news soon, and then sprinkled throughout things covering things from the past. Like I think next week I'm doing Green Lantern First Flight,
Ooh, okay.
the
Yeah.
first animated movie from DC Green Lantern
Yeah.
related, Emerald Knights. I'm sure I'll do a movie episode. I might cover every single episode of Green Lantern the animated series.
Oh
So
man,
we'll see.
yeah.
We'll see. So it's going to be at least monthly covering this book, 100%. We'll get to War Journal when I catch up on that, and we'll do the same thing. So this was a catch up. Everybody catch up on Green Lantern, read issue 1 through 12, and then next month we'll check 13 out together. And then I think that's all I have for this week. Thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat. Thanks for listening on iTunes. iTunes is being selective of which episodes they want to put up on my feed or not. It's really strange. But I'm on all the episodes are showing up on Spotify. I need to sort it out. Or you can always watch here at lanternslive.com or the YouTube channel at youtube.com/@lanternslive, which I fixed. It's fixed. But yeah, Vactor, you have anything else to say? Anything to plug?
First of all, thank you for having me. This show is going to move up on my list of podcasts to listen to. This is filling a void of I want to be excited about Green Lantern and I want to talk about it, but I didn't know where to fit it in, and then also someone who is excited about it. So this is great. This podcast is great. I'm covering The Acolyte, the Star Wars show. You and I talked about The Acolyte on a previous episode of your podcast, live action Star Wars. And then I'm also talking comic books. I'm trying to talk about My Adventures with Superman, which is a Superman anime that's going on right now. There's the Suicide Squad anime that's going on. I'm trying to cover that and other things over at This Comic Cooks. And then my Star Wars channel is Trust in the Force. All that stuff is in my link tree, so you can check that out. But thank you again. Ralph is the greatest Lantern fan that I know.
Everyone's LOLing. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And until next time, beware my power. It's Lanterns Live.